Good morning from Silicon Valley. This is Marco Marinucci from Mind the Bridge. Today we're going to talk with one of the major players in the world of open innovation, with Microsoft in particular. We have the pleasure of having with us Roberto Croci, Managing Director for Microsoft for Startups, Middle East and Africa. Hi, good morning, Roberto.
Hello, good morning, Marco. Thanks for inviting me. Looking forward to the conversation.
It's a pleasure, and an Italian connational. I've been living in Silicon Valley for quite a long time, and you similarly have been living outside of our home country for how many years now?
About 10 years now. Yeah, I've been wandering around Europe a bit, and London and Paris, from Milan first, and then landed here in Dubai 7 years ago, still with Google, and then moved to Microsoft 1 year ago.
That's true. We were also colleagues at Google without knowing that we were colleagues. It's great to see people kind of walking very parallel paths. So excellent. Your world of reference today is Microsoft for Startups. So we want to talk about that in particular with the some double focus on your views on the region and what's happening in particular in Middle East and Africa. And so looking forward to the conversation. So let's get started. I think you covered a little bit of your background already. Maybe just a recap of Microsoft for Startups in general. So kind of what are the macro objectives, the KPIs? I mean, we know, and our audience know that Microsoft for Startups actually was called slightly different before, but it's one of the historical programs in support and in integration with startups. So give us a little bit of your view of the history of the program and how it evolved over time.
Yeah, absolutely. You're right. Well, the name was quite different, right? So there was Bizspark, which was the program that Microsoft historically had to offer support and credits and resources to startups. I would say the evolution, Microsoft for Startups comes together with the evolution Microsoft is experiencing in the recent years, right? With Satya Nadella moving to CEO and starting this, I would say, cultural transformation within the organization to implement the culture in a different way, to look at partnerships in a different way, to refocus the company on big bets and priorities that were different than before. So this same approach has been translated to startups as well. And Microsoft for Startups starts from trying to fill the gaps that were still there with previous programs like Bizspark, because at the end of the day, Bizspark was a solid program, but resources were scattered. It was mainly tech focused. And there was no centralized team as well that could have helped to scale then across the globe. So Microsoft for Startups comes also with the vision that we want to move the conversation with startups beyond the credits, right? So what we saw historically is that startups were looking at cloud vendors as an incentive to leverage credits to reduce costs. And this is great. I mean, this is helpful for startups, especially in the early stage, but especially tech startups, should look beyond the credits and factor technology into their P&L. From our perspective, the conversation and the big question was, what is that we have as assets that we can extend to startups to really help them create more value? So the conversation started as focusing more on the value proposition we can provide to startups. And that's where Microsoft for Startups was created as a strong value proposition. That's why historically we started being very much focused on B2B startups, enterprise solutions, because Microsoft as an organization has access to the largest enterprises globally, a huge number of corporates, not to mention the small and medium businesses. So that we designed a journey where on top of the access to technology, of course, which remains an important pillar of the offering. So providing credits, but also licenses. We have a beautiful offer, because if we think GitHub Enterprise is something we extend to startups to start building and developing on it, and then
GitHub,
we have other.
Sorry to interrupt, but did you bought not too long ago, right? As a big move.
It was a big move. It was a big move, and the community, if I'm not mistaken, is around 60 million developers globally. So it's a big community. It's a sexy product. It speaks the startup language. So we included the enterprise version in our offering to startups, which is great, right? And on the technology side, we add on top a layer of services where we help startups to migrate and build on Microsoft technology. We help looking at cost optimization or scalability of the tech stack, building the product and integrating with third-party applications if needed. But as we were saying, the focus on B2B startups, and this is where we are differentiating, is we designed this journey to onboard enterprise solutions into the marketplace, Microsoft Marketplace, which gives access to 100 million buyers globally. And with that, basically, we help startups to publish their solutions. We help them to move from being market ready to be more enterprise ready, offer trials, becoming transactable, go to market. And for the ones that get there and have traction, the next step is to turn them into partners, where basically we have a way to incentivize our field sellers, Microsoft employees, and Microsoft partners to help sell with the startups that become what we call co-sell ready, sell with them to help them accelerate sales, extend their sales team, accelerate growth and access to markets, leveraging the assets at Microsoft has, which is a global presence, the widest partner network, domain field or industry focused expertise in key industries like healthcare, education, retail, manufacturing, and so on and so forth. So that's the value proposition, is not only looking at the technology side, which of course is important and is probably the onboarding and the foundational stage, but also the long-term partnerships. And because at the end of the day, beyond capital, which of course is important, and we help showcasing startups to investors and facilitating those connections. But beyond capital, what startups need is access to technology and access to markets. Mm-hmm. So and globally we surpassed the $1 billion in revenues when we look at the pipeline of opportunities that cost-ready startups have in their portfolio. So it's real value.
Just to understand that, is 1 billion in extra revenues that is being created by startups that have been certified through the program?
Yeah, that have been graduated through the program and became cost-ready. Yeah. And that's why we see that we prove that there is value. We prove that a focused value proposition pays off. And there is value for founders, for startups. So that's why we are now expanding this further outside of the US and UK that have been, focus markets for, the initial launch of Microsoft for Startups. And we are trying to, of course, develop this offering here in this region, the Middle East and Africa region, which, of course, is an early stage ecosystem. So that's why we developed a vision and a value chain that leverages, builds on top of the Microsoft for Startups global program. And as you can see here, so Microsoft for Startups is at the center because definitely the startups that are enterprise solutions and can fit into the program, and where we see that they can get the value. We already started onboarding startups from this region as well, and we already have some initial success stories that we can share. But we think that given the ecosystem being earlier stage, we cannot apply just a one-size-fits-all globally, right? So we need to do also local programs that really try to have an impact on the local ecosystem and try to start sometimes at earlier stage and sometimes to expand or augment what the global Microsoft Startups program is doing in order to be very relevant to the local ecosystem. And as you see here, for example, we are launching in the coming months. We already announced that through our partnership with Abu Dhabi Investment Office, which joined us as a founding partner for all of these programs. We are launching in the coming months some relevant programs focused on the Middle East and Africa region.
Roberto, before we go there, let me stop you 1 second, because I just want to cover, before we focus on Middle East and Africa, how long does it take in general, from the history of Microsoft for startups, to become sales ready, so certified? I don't know what is the this stamp of approval that you give before being part of your marketplace.
Yeah, that's a very good question. So we call that stage graduation. I mean, it's just when we graduate startup, the KPI, if you want, or the objective is to graduate startups out of our program that become co-sell ready. So that, of course, that they've built their solution, migrated and built the solution on Azure, and they've leveraged the other products, GitHub, and etc. But they graduate as co-sell ready, because then we return a long-term partnership to Microsoft, right? So they will be lifelong partners to Microsoft, and they will be able to tap into the broader organization, which then again gives access globally. So it depends. It depends on the stage where the startup is onboarded, right? So usually, the sweet spot is startups that have a SaaS solution. Startups that say are already kind of revenue generating, so, and of course they have a product that have been already post product market fit, and that are backed by institutional funding. The reason being they have enough in their back, right, in their resources to fuel the growth that they want to go through. So that the startups at that stage, say, usually is sometimes a late seed, pre-series A stage on to series C. That is usually the sweet spot. Startups that are at that stage, it's a sweet spot. They would plug into the program at the right time. It would be much easier to onboard them and get them through the journey, right? So we have seen success stories happening in 6 months for startups that are, in this sweet spot to 1 year, in between 6 months and 1 year. It's a journey. That's the important thing to me. Is it's a journey, right? So the expectation is sometimes we get in touch with founders and say, okay, now we are in the program and you introduce us to all your clients, right? And it doesn't happen like that, because it's a journey, right? It's also sharing more about how to become more enterprise ready, how to be appealing to enterprise, how to sell to enterprise, how to work with corporates or enterprise, which is a different game, right? So we have all of those assets that we put in place in order to coach and to be there in the journey with the startups.
But you said that one of the conditions is to have had previous funding. So if somebody has just bootstrapped the company but is actually selling pretty well, would you accept that, or you make an exception? Or the funding, by known investors is one of the preconditions?
No, look, we might be doing exceptions. I mean, don't believe in a model that is rigid, even if, of course, we need to be disciplined into, whatever fits the value proposition. So, but we can do exceptions, because sometimes it's also a matter of, the dynamics you have in specific ecosystems. There are ecosystems where if you are bootstrapped, that you can grow pretty fast, or if you have a solution that have real potential. It's really worth start working with the startup early on. So we might have exception as long as the startup for this program, for the global program, is for the time being is a B2B enterprise solutions. We might onboard startups that are earlier stage or have not received funding yet, as long as they already have an MVP or a product, because. And that's why we will see when we start talking about the Middle East more specifically. We don't have today a specific approach or a dedicated program for early stage startups. Early stage meaning at ideation stage,
right?
Where the product has been to when they need to move from ideation to MVP. We are building something. We are cooking something there for a programmatic approach. To start with globally, but there will be more news, more announcements later on in the next months. For now, that's why we focus mainly on startups that are enterprise solutions. There is a product. Then, if the sweet spot is if there is an institutional funding backing the venture, if not, again, they can definitely, we are looking at all B2B startups across the market.
In terms of geographies, so you say obviously the more mature market have been active from the beginning. Startups need to apply for a specific geography, or it doesn't really matter automatically. It's a global market.
No, look, yes, we used to have a global website where it was possible for startups wherever they are in the world to apply. It is currently in the process of being revamped, so there will be a new website launched pretty soon. For the time being, for example, in the Middle East and Africa, we are sharing, an application form where startups can apply. But definitely there will be a way for startups to apply. The way we are organized is we have people like me, like managing directors within the team that are covering the other regions in the world, right? So we have presence in the US, in UK, in Western Europe, in Latin America, in China, in India, in Southeast Asia and Australia, here in the Middle East and Africa. So we are covering the world. So we are receiving usually applications regionally because we believe that the expertise and the understanding of local ecosystems are key in structuring this sort of due diligence process and recruiting of startups through local partnerships with VCs, investors, through accelerators, incubators, government, especially in this part of the world, and other institutions, right? So we believe in that. So that's why the applications usually would come regionally.
Right.
And very soon there will be another updated version of the global website where probably we will be centralizing the sourcing of applications through that.
But then after you've been certified and you're a partner, automatically your product is available globally throughout your, not just Microsoft, but also your millions and, I don't know if it's millions, but definitely the thousands of partners that you have.
Oh yeah, that's the beauty of it. Yes, that's where we are leveraging one of the assets or the value that Microsoft can provide is the global presence, right? So once you become co-sell ready, basically your IP is shared, right? So is shared, is part of, is in the marketplace, but you are also co-sell ready. So there is an incentive for the different sellers, depending which industry you are. Maybe you are an horizontal solution, so multiple field teams, different industries might be interested in that, or you are specific to an industry, so mainly the field sellers or partners that are focused on that industry will be interested. But definitely there are ways where the solution is shared, right? So if you are interested in developing or expanding to a specific market, it's not plug and play, meaning, of course, it requires as well, the connections that we have internally also to activate the people and the teams locally. But if the solution is IP co-sell ready, the incentive is already there, and the teams would have all the interest in promoting or helping startups to enter new markets where there is a solution, because the value proposition behind is for Microsoft is an ecosystem play. Right. Microsoft is in conversation with many corporates. Most of the times the agenda is about digital transformation, so it's a very high level within the organizations and long term. And it's clear that Microsoft people are exposed to challenges, use cases from these corporates where it's not necessarily Microsoft products that are the only components of the necessary solution, right? So they might be, but they might not even be as off the shelf. So if we build an ecosystem of startups that bring this innovation, and we help bring this innovation to corporates, we will be helping corporates in their transformation journey, in the digital transformation journey that they initiated. We will help startups, giving them more business or accelerating their business growth. We will have more players building on Microsoft technology, and indirectly this is also the incentive for the broader Microsoft organization, not just the startups team, to work long term with facilitating these connections and this growth.
Which is, by the way, the reason for us to organize constantly what we call the ScaleUp Summit. So there's really this marketplace where at the core is really try to find solutions for specific challenges from corporates. All right, let's go back to your region, the Middle East and Africa region. So some of the programs are some that you've launched and some that they are about to launch. So let's review them one by one.
Sure, with pleasure. Look, the Microsoft for Startups program, the global one that we talked so far, is launched, right? So we started approximately 1 year ago with COVID in the middle, but we onboarded a good number of startups and very high quality, and we have some stories we can dive deeper later. But there are other programs that we are about to launch. The first one will be Highway to 100 Unicorns. This program is, as you see here, there will be 2 sessions in a calendar year about Highway to 100 Unicorns. Basically, Highway to 100 Unicorns is a program we launched in India to target Tier 2 and Tier 3 cities with the objective of being more inclusive. If you think about all the unicorns in India are coming out of 3 cities only. So we wanted to reach out to Tier 2 and Tier 3 states, surface more ideas, give access to young talent and new ideas to mainstream, attract more VCs, investments and funds to these states. And it started like that. So as it was extremely successful, we said, well, we should do this program, we should launch it as well in the Middle East and Africa, because there is a lot of talent as well spread across this wide region. And sometimes the access to VCs, access to capital, to markets is not there yet. So if we can help build an inclusive program where we build the ecosystem, where we engage with the ecosystem and we bring the different stakeholders together, we help surface insights and call to actions. And meanwhile, we take the chance to run a competition where we can surface ideas and recruit for the other programs, whether it's the global program, because for sure there are startups that are already at a stage where they can plug into the global program, and they don't need, a high touch or deep touch of experience, because they have already resources they are leveraging, and they just need the guidance and the access to the value proposition we shared before. But at the same time, there might be startups that really would benefit from a high-touch approach, really going deeper with them for a few months. And that's what we are launching as a second program, which is called GrowthX. GrowthX is going to be a sort of a virtual accelerator. I don't like the word accelerator because it's not meant to be that. It's meant to be a program very much geared towards corporate engagement. So we will be selecting 15 startups, and as you see, these cohorts, there will be 2 cohorts per year following each Highway to 100 sessions. So Highway to 100 sessions will end with the competition. We will select 15 startups each time, and the 15 startups will then join the GrowthX program, where we will be able to provide access to corporates, mentorship from people with real expertise, work-life mentors, workshops, geared towards corporate engagement. So B2B enterprise solutions will be able to showcase their solution to corporates. We will go in depth in how they're building their product, how they're going to market, how they can work with corporates or enterprises if they're solving for specific challenges. The model is scalable. So given that we are launching it now in the coming months, the first cohort will be kind of generic, but we are evaluating how we can be more industry specific going forward as well. So, having additional cohorts of startups that would be either funded by an additional expansion partner like a corporate itself, or a specific industry or specific solution or specific challenge driven cohorts, right? So, but we built the foundation for the program to be launched, to have the first cohort, getting the first feedbacks, and of course iterate and being very open to feedback to make it more relevant, better. But the angle would be very much, we want to have this program to be very focused on enterprise solutions and corporate engagement. There is no such a program in this region today, so that's why we want to leverage on the unique points where we also differentiate and where we can add value, and be very much focused on that, on a depth motion where we can really showcase by working with startups for 3 months, the journey that they can go through, the benefit they can get, showcase the solutions, how they, learned how to be more relevant or sellable to enterprises, and how to build products that can solve real challenges at the end of the day for enterprises and corporates. This will be GrowthX and Highway to 100 Unicorns. These are the two programs we are launching in the coming months. So Highway will be launched mid-May, and the first cohort of GrowthX should start approximately by the end of August.
Okay, so you're in the process of planning and communicating, so that I think it's a perfect timing for also the audience of startups or scale-ups from the region, because you're probably filtering now. And this is equity-free, I assume. What's the commitment from the startup?
Yes, absolutely, completely equity-free. There is no fee, no cost, anything. It's a support that we are giving. It's something that we are doing to enable the ecosystem to create more success stories from this part of the world. Also, if you want, the ambition is also to change or evolve the mindset, right? Because sometimes you hear people here, and you are the best person to discuss this with, because you're based in the Silicon Valley. Sometimes they say, "Oh, we should build, Dubai or Abu Dhabi or the UAE as the Silicon Valley of the Middle East and Africa region." And they say that's probably a too high ambition, right? So, and probably does it make sense? Meaning, the starting point is different, the ecosystem is different. I think every ecosystem should leverage their own assets, right? So I don't think that is the purpose, but definitely some of the learnings and some of a part of the mindset, right, is could be beneficial, because here we would love to have more founders that think global, that want to export technology or products from here, at a time where governments are really trying to diversify economy from being oil-based to being more knowledge-based. So the purpose is also to bridge the gaps in the ecosystem, connecting different stakeholders in a meaningful way, and try also to change a bit mindset. That's why we have also other programs in the roadmap that, for example, will be focusing more on youth and students because we need to start early on. Entrepreneurship is also a mindset. There are some cultural nuances across the region. So if we can play a role there and give a contribution to tap into youth, enable them to skills that will be in demand in the future to start with, and from there create a funnel, from students that are really having great ideas that try to solve real problems. And that's where probably we will be able also to expand beyond B2Bs, because if we start that early on, we will be able to be inclusive of any solution that are trying to solve real problems, and then build that funnel, and then be in the journey since early on.
Yeah, and sometimes, I mean, to change the mindset, it takes a generation or a number of success stories, because that's where you start seeing role models that you want to follow for a number of reasons. So speaking of which, I know that those programs are pretty new, but you do have already a few success stories that you want to share.
We have seen a wave of fintech startups that are kind of ahead of the curve, even compared to other ecosystems, honestly, due to different reasons, right? So on the regulation side of things, I would say in the UAE, with ADGM, the Abu Dhabi Global Market, and the DIFC, the regulatory entities here, even Sama in Saudi, or Fintech in Fintech Bay in Bahrain, they really did an amazing job to enable more entrepreneurs to tap into the fintech opportunity and develop solutions across different domains, right? From digital payments to remittances to buy now, pay later solutions to the cryptocurrencies to insurtech and so on and so forth. So robo-advisor, for example, and so on and so forth. So there are definitely startups and great teams and founders that have been investing in the region. Still, there is a long way to go in terms of the ecosystem, right? Because if we look at the different regulations that you need to go through if you want to scale across MENA and cross-border payments and so on and so forth, it's still difficult for entrepreneurs to scale fast as you would do in the US or other mature ecosystems, but there is abundance of ideas there. So, for example, we have been working with a startup. For example, Taraboot Gateway is a great startup from Bahrain, and they set up a headquarters here in Abu Dhabi in the UAE, and they recently raised the largest seed funding across the MENA region for a fintech, $13 million, which is pretty high. For the region for a seed funding.
And they're part of your program already, of the global program?
They are already part of they are already part of our global program. So they are leveraging the fact that here in the UAE, Microsoft has invested ahead of anyone else in building local data centers. So being in a regulated industry, they can take advantage of the security, reliability of the data hosted locally, and compliance, of course, with regulations. So they started building on Azure and migrating some of the services they already had on different platforms on Azure. And they moved the headquarters here, so they see being in the UAE sort of a regional hub then for further expansion as well to more countries in the region. So Taraboot Gateway is a great example. There are others, for example, in the realm of buy now, pay later solutions. So, for example, we are working with Spotty. They launched their solution during COVID. They started building on Azure. They were able, for example, if I'm not mistaken, in 6 months, they got huge traction in the market, and they were able to publish their solution already on the marketplace. And we are working, of course, to make them a cost-ready partner, right? So Spotty offers buy now, pay later solution with developing a very tailored model, to understand the credit profile, the risk profile, and the credit risk with consumers, but putting the charge on the merchant rather than the consumer. Right? So they have this new model that they started developing here in the region with Tabby and Spotty and other solutions. And the Spotty is on the program. They already are benefiting also on the co-sell journey and the marketplace, and they're expanding. They're in the process of expanding to more countries. It's also a nice story because the founders, for example, are siblings. They are, the co-founder Anushka is also a female founder. So it's a true example of a wave of female founders that we are seeing. Despite the challenges, we are seeing more and more in the region, and we are there to support those stories as well, because we want to see more of these success stories across the region. And they both were living in the US a long time in financial industry. So they're bringing here also expertise back in the region of more mature ecosystems. So they are very solid, and we are very happy to see more of these founders coming back closer to their region and giving back to this region, creating new jobs, new opportunities, and developing here.
Cross-pollinate. So
cross-pollinate, yeah.
I think that's a perfect segue to the last topic that I would like to pick your brain on. That is some of the macro trends of the region, as some you already mentioned. But do you think there are potential future and current opportunities that are very unique from the rest of the world? Now you've been living there for a number of years and dealing with the world of innovators. You do have probably a good pulse of the market.
Yeah. Look, I believe so. And that's why I mentioned before, I believe every ecosystem, right, should really focus on what is unique there and leverage those assets instead of just putting the head down and trying to copy, other ecosystem without even thinking. So I believe there are opportunities here that are unique. Think about, for example, the first that comes to mind is agri-tech. Agri-tech and desert tech. Well, desert tech is kind of straightforward, right? So given the abundance of desert around, but and also but agri-tech is really interesting because there is a strong vision from government to develop this in a way to position, for example, the UAE and the region as a hub for agri-tech. If you think about it, the UAE today, 90% of the food is imported.
Wow.
So, Abu Dhabi Investment Office, for example, which is that entity that is responsible to attract more foreign direct investment, has been focusing a lot on a few industries, one of which is definitely agri-tech. So, for example, think about Green Factory Emirates is a project that has been already launched here in the UAE with Dr. Mohammed Juan Al-Daheri. Is chairman at Rainmaker and the founder of Green Factory Emirates. Green Factory Emirates is the largest indoor farm globally. So the ambition there is to produce 10,000 tons of food, organic food from the UAE for the UAE. For example, so they really have a big ambition to do that, and by announcing and by launching this project, they already attracted the investors from other countries like the Netherlands, which are pretty advanced in agri-tech as well, in some agri-tech solutions, and other foreign direct investments. So agri-tech is definitely a sector that is a big opportunity here. Also, the corridor that is now open with Israel, for example, where they also have of course, way more advanced sophistication in technology. So they have some industries that resonates in terms of, finding new ways of collaborating. Agri-tech and desert tech, for example, is again a wonderful example. I believe also other industries like, for example, healthcare. Healthcare, education, and fintech are definitely industries where we are seeing movement, and we're seeing trends of more ideas being funded and developed. When it comes to fintech, for example, think about some of the countries across this region. They still have 80% of the population unbanked. Financial literacy is a big problem, looking broadly at the whole Middle East and Africa region. And we're seeing founders that have gained their experience either in the UK, in the US, or globally, in financial industries, that are coming back to the region to give back and build solutions that are trying to tackle these real problems, which is great. The other area of focus for the UAE definitely is also sustainability. The expo is coming, hopefully, if it is not delayed, but it should come in October, right? So, and it's all around sustainability, and the UAE is definitely trying to invest into clean tech, into water, into a number of technologies that are around sustainability. So
also the future transportation is a big one. Decarbonization, yes. In general, we have some content as part of our summit that is definitely.
Oh, this is beautiful. There. Yeah, that's beautiful because, for example, Emirates, we are partnering with Emirates in an initiative that they launched already years ago, but from this year we're also partnering. Aviation X, which is also within Intelac. Intelac Hub is a focused initiative with incubation and acceleration of startups in travel, tourism, and transportation and hospitality. So we have seen a number of startups there that, by having access to Emirates and Dubai Tourism, for example, you have a testbed that you can really try new things. For example, there was this startup that they built the concept of this tray with a chip and an RFID as well to optimize the food waste, and they estimated, and they really had an impact because by reducing that, they were also able to reduce the carbon emissions, right? So by a huge percentage, by having optimizing the weight of food as well on the flight. So and this is also social impact, right? So it's impact driven. So sustainability is also key, is top high in the agenda of government here. So they're really investing and doubling down on different things, from mobility, transportation, water, air pollution, clean tech, and so on and so forth.
I think it's a great opportunity, a great window to a world of opportunity. I think the expo will be definitely a big showcase of what can be done and what's unique about the region. And so we invite all the innovators to keep an eye on it, because we definitely will cross path with a number of projects, as you mentioned, just a few, and not last ones are obviously what Microsoft is doing in the region. Roberto, thanks a lot for your time. It's been a great pleasure as an introduction of all the beautiful things that you guys are doing. So we hope to see you live sometime in the future. And thanks again. Keep up with good work.
Thank you, Marco. Pleasure. Thank you for inviting me, and a pleasure being in touch. Looking forward to the conversation. Looking forward to see you guys coming here for Expo. It will be a good excuse to visit, despite, of course, the challenge with the COVID and the pandemic, and but hopefully with the vaccine,
we'll go through
it. Yeah, we'll go through it. So looking forward to see you here around in October.
Take care. Bye, Roberto.
Bye. Take care.